morning, and we just thank you for this opportunity to worship together, whether we're in person or at home. Father, I just thank you for that. And as we prepare ourselves, as we've come to you in song and in praise, I ask that we now quiet our hearts, that we open our ears, and that we listen for your voice. Father, as we get ready to start the message, I ask that my voice come mute and yours be heard. So, Father, I ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. First of all, I want to say I don't know how I keep collecting things on my stand. And I'm the only one here, and I don't use these things. Is there a problem?
Just reverse the screen on me. It's okay. Briefly.
So everyone got to see Marcy briefly there. As she's having technical difficulties with the phone back there. So, over the last few weeks, we learned that we need to care for one another, and that caring for one another, we must serve one another in love. Today, I want to introduce you to another passage that stands firm on top of serving one another. Because when we care for each other and we serve each other, we also learn to share the load with each other. Sometimes being the rudder for someone's life, helping them turn from sin, or helping them start in the spiritual, helping to be the starter in the spiritual car. Maybe you're confident, maybe you're a confidant and a cheerleader, or maybe you are the one needing all of this. But in any case, we are to share our lives with those whom we trust. And if we love each other, and we care and serve one another, we should have a trust for each other, right? Now, I know trust doesn't just happen overnight. And I also know that it probably is the easiest thing to lose, along with respect. But why? Why is it so easy to give up on someone? Do you remember the golden rule that we were taught as kids? Do unto others as you would like done unto you. Do you want people to lose respect and trust in you? If you are like most, your answer is no. Or not no, it's I don't care. Why do I care what people think of me? It shouldn't matter what people think of me, but that's a lie, and you know that. You know it's a lie. We do care what people think of us. And we look at people and say, if that was that person, I would have stepped up and helped them, or I would have done this, or I would have done that. That's a lie. Because so many times we see people struggling and we won't reach out to help them. We won't turn around and say, here, let me help you with that. We step on over and we walk on by and we don't care. Why? Because we've been burnt in the past. People have come and done that to us, and we tell others that, hey, we're not going to do that to someone else. I would step up. No, you won't. No, you don't. And I'm sure some of you are listening to my voice right now saying, yeah, I would. And some of you might. But the mass majority of us will step over someone. If we see someone lying in the street begging for help, we do one of these. We don't look at them. We don't look them in the eye. We don't feel the pain. As I shared last week, we don't see people eye to eye because we're in our phones. We're in whatever media that we have. We're not looking at them. We're not living with them. So how can we shoulder their load? And we ask, why would I be there for them? They weren't there for me. And we move on. But Jesus tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves. He also tells us to pray for our enemy and love our enemy. If you don't believe me, look it up in Matthew. He tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves and love your enemy and also pray for them. And then Paul, in Galatians 6, he tells us this. Excuse me while I take a drink first. verses 1 through 10, it says this. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. I'm going to stop there. He says gently and humbly. Two very important words. We are to gently help our fallen brother or sister, not drag them across the ground, kicking and screaming, you shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. Listen to what God says. Don't do this. We're not supposed to drag them around like that. We're not supposed to verbally bash them. We're supposed to be gentle and humble. Not to call them stupid, not to tell them they did a stupid thing, not to humiliate them, and not tell someone that who's fallen, well, I wouldn't have done that. I'm better than that. I wouldn't have done that. We're to be humble. Because that kind of attitude leads right into this verse. It'll lead you right into the last part of this. Or the last part of verse 1, it says, be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Having an attitude that you're better than them, having an attitude that you're standing over them, you run the risk of walking that same path because you're arrogant. Verse 2, share each other's burdens. In this way, obey the laws of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself because you're not. I'm going to repeat that. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For we are each responsible for our own conduct. In other words, don't worry about what everyone else says or does. Stick to your task and don't compare it to everyone else. Then you can be satisfied with the work you've done. Verse 6. Those who are taught the word of God should provide for their teachers, sharing all good things with them. Now, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but let me try and make it a little clearer. Make sure you are taking care of those who are taking care of your soul, making sure they are provided for. Verse 7, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. I think we've heard this many times throughout Scripture. You reap what you sow. So don't think you can fool God. He knows it all. Don't think you can tap dance a line, because if you're tap dancing a line, you're still on the line. You're right there, right on the line between a good decision and a bad decision. So it's best to stop walking the tightrope and steer clear of the line, or else you're going to pay for a bad decision. Verse 8. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessings if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially those in the faith family. I want to repeat that last sentence. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the faith family. It's a key word, especially. It's not inclusively, it's not exclusively, it's not only, it's especially. It does not negate everyone else. But for some reason in the church, if they're not a member, if they're not part of our congregation, we can't help them. That's false. We are to help everyone, but especially those within the faith family. We twist it so many times. Meaning we are to take that opportunity to help everyone just as Jesus did. He shared the burden of the world, past, present, and future. He took it all on himself. And the sin, the shame that we carried, all that weight, all that pain, he put on his shoulders. He came into Jerusalem. He rode a donkey, a beast of burden, knowing he himself was also a beast of burden. Now hear me out on this. Our God, our King, riding a donkey, feeling the weight of everything that is about to happen. Jesus wept over Jerusalem, knowing that his people, the people he was coming to save, the people that were shouting in the streets, Hosanna, the ones that were calling out to him, Lord, save us. He knew that they didn't accept him. They didn't know who he was. They recognized him as a king, but they didn't trust him as God. And he knew that no matter what he was doing, they were not going to be saved. Because they didn't recognize him. When they yelled out Hosanna, which literally means save us, he could see right through it. What he came to do, they didn't care. And as a whole, they would not accept it. And as he started, or as he shared that last meal with his disciples, when he sat at the table and he poured out his love as he washed their feet and he passed the cup and the bread, knowing full well that one of his disciples, and he even said it, one of his disciples is going to betray him. That weight still laying on his shoulders and building, knowing what's coming next. He carried not only the physical weight of the cross, as he carried it to Golgotha, but he also carried the emotional weight and the spiritual weight of the world with him. And he did it without hesitation. He didn't think twice about it. And every year we stand and we wave our palms and we say, Hosanna, Hosanna. We sing. And we sing that song or any of the songs that say Hosanna. And we sing it as a praise and hey, Lord, Hosanna. And we sing it as an adoration or a joyful thing when it literally means save us. We sing it not knowing the true meaning of the word. And if you look it up in the dictionary, it says adoration in English. But if you look into the context and where it came from, the Greek and the Hebrew and the Aramaic, it means save us. And we stand here and Lord, save us, save us, save us, not knowing what we're saying because he's already done that. When he carried the cross to Golgotha, he went there to save us. He's already done it. We need to think of something else about this. We celebrate his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, knowing that he had already done what he came to do. So why do we wave the palms? Why do we celebrate when we're asking him to save us? He's already done it. If we believe in who he is, he's already done it. So I challenge you. As we say it, we're no better than Jerusalem because we don't understand what we're saying. We ask him to save us. We ask him to come into our hearts, and we don't even recognize him when he's standing in the room. When he's standing right with us, we don't recognize him. So instead of saying, Lord, save us, to help us shoulder the load of our brothers and sisters. And wisdom to know when we can't. And the humility to look to someone who can help shoulder our load. To use the phrase, no sacrifice, no victory, and yes, I know it's from the Transformers. It's the Witwicky motto. But that line directly follows the example of Jesus Christ, who sacrificed his life to remove us from sin and claim victory over death. So, at the risk of being a broken record, I ask you to follow the example of Christ, to live a life that glorifies him, to live your life as he showed us how to live. Follow him to that cross. It should have a different meaning for us now. We don't need to throw a palm on the ground and say, Lord, welcome King. We don't have to scream out Hosanna because he's already done it. He's already saved us. Instead, ask him for help. Help in guiding you to bear the burden of your brothers and sisters. Reminded a couple years ago, we did an exercise at youth camp. And they chains for everyone. Everyone in the camp wore chains. And we had this steep hill to climb. Everyone had to climb the hill by themselves. And it had rained, so people were slipping and sliding and going all over the place. Well, we took those chains, because we were all chained, and we linked arms through the chains. We walked the hill together. Those who were slipping and sliding were anchored by those who had a good footing. Those who had a good footing were able to help those who lost their footing and keep everyone straight. That is what it's like to bear the burden of our brothers and sisters. Being there, being an anchor point for someone else. And when you lose your footing, someone else is being an anchor point for you. Jesus Christ is our anchor. We got to keep our eyes focused on him. But in doing that, we can't step over everyone else to see him or to get to him. We have to be constantly reaching out to everyone else, saying, Lord, give me the strength to help them up. Give me the wisdom in what I need to say to them. Show me and teach me how to love them like you loved me. I do believe that was a line from one of the songs earlier. In all of it, everything we do, we need to do out of love. Not for reward, not for recognition, but out of love. So I challenge you, as we get ready for Easter next week, to look at our neighbors, look at our brothers and sisters, look at the community around us. How can we be helped with them? Yes, I know we're supposed to stay locked down, we're supposed to be in our homes, we're supposed to be wherever, not being out in public and not doing. But how can we help others? Are we reaching out and checking on them? Are we saying, do you need groceries? Are we asking what we can do to help them? Are we being a sounding board? Are we being someone of strength and good footing for someone else? And on the other end, are we reaching out? Or are we too proud? We need to get rid of our pride. We need to love one another. We need to care. We need to pick up the load for someone else. Same as when Jesus carried the cross. When he fell, he had help carrying it. Somebody else that picked it up and helped him walk with it. Who are you helping? And who are you letting help? Bear each other's burdens. Trust one another. And don't betray that trust. Be honorable. So, you look at your palm. A lot of people, they take them and they cross on them and they hang it up in their house and they hang it in their car. Let's look at it as a symbol of strength. Let's not look at it and remember us asking for help and asking for saving, because Jesus has already done that. Let's look at it as a symbol of strength. Something to remind us to bear the load of someone else. Let's love each other. And let's pray. Father, we come to you this morning with everything that goes on in our world and in our society, all the distractions, all the things that just leave us scratching our head at times. I ask that you stay straight in front of us. I know you're strong. I know you're standing there. I know you're always with us, but help us to see that. Help us to move all the clutter and all the junk aside so we can see you clearly. So we can stay focused on you. So we know when somebody is hurt, we can look in their eyes and see the pain. We can look at their life and we can say, let me help you. And Lord, those of us that need the help, I ask that we be humble enough to accept it. Because sometimes we need help getting up on our feet so we can turn to help others. Let us be linked together as your children, as your body. Let us grow together. This dark cloud that just surrounds the world, I ask that you show us a bright light that we can just turn to and follow. I know it's there. And we say we know it's there. We just let things cloud our judgment and cloud our sight. Help us to remove that from our lives, Lord. So Lord, I don't want to use Hosanna anymore as a save us, but I do want to say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for conquering sin and death. Thank you for opening the door for us to come home. Just help us to see that a little bit better, Lord. Thank you for sending your Son, for being that perfect Lamb.